And now I will introduce you to my brother and best man Pete, who's about to say a few words, and hopefully it won't be too embarrassing from my point of view. And then after that you will hear from Charlotte and Marina, who will be giving a few words as well. So take the floor, Pete. Thank you.
Well done, Matt. Hope you can all hear me. I don't really need to give this speech. Matt's basically said all of it already anyway. Right, no, that's seriously. My wife and I... Oh, sorry, that's your speech. Gotta stop doing that.
Classic.
I remember the day that Matt was born in Dallyborough Hospital. Mr McKinnon, the headmaster, came into my class to tell us we had to go to our friends after school. Inconsiderate as ever, Matthew Graham Mackenzie then finally arrived at 1 in the morning. Our very own little Louistia, born in a convent hospital. To this day, Mum has a deep-seated fear of nuns. Growing up, the one thing that was very striking about Matt was his hair. Thick, luscious, curly hair that Mum refused to cut for years. This is why old photos of the family look like we'd adopted Diana Ross. It would be utterly awful if any of them ended up on Facebook with Matt tagged. Well, it's not my fault there's no projector here. Still, at least he had hair back then. Not that I can talk. When I started writing this speech, I have to admit, I went to Matt and asked him if there were any old embarrassing stories that he didn't want me to bring up. So I won't be able to tell you about the time Matt, having recently acquired a lovely new shiny red die-cast steam locomotive, decided that he was going to throw it over the side of a cross-channel ferry. Poor Matt to this day doesn't understand why Dad wouldn't go and retrieve his lovely red steam engine. Anyway, I can't tell you about that one. I can tell you about the time... Well, I could.
It's difficult, isn't it?
I can tell you about the time Matt woke up in the morning, went to school, and ended up at the GP with a blue face. Was it some sort of injury? Circulation problem? Vitamin deficiency? Or just the dye from a new set of pillowcases? You do remember to wash your neck these days, Matt. Yeah?
I've got better to know.
Growing up, Matt did have a habit of breaking things. There's a Millennium Falcon in Mum and Dad's loft, that would probably be worth hundreds if it still had its guns, and radar dish, and cockpit. He even carried this trend on to adulthood when he took ownership of our beloved Mini, which in a completely wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey way was originally bought by Paula, our sister, and then inherited by me, and then eventually ended up in Matt's hands, and shortly thereafter ended up on his roof in a ditch on the Oban Road. Thankfully, injuries were minimal. If I may indulge in a little memory of my own, I remember the time, December 2008, I took my now husband Danny to visit Matt and my old stomping grounds in Dundee. Obviously deciding that there was nothing more romantic than a night out in Dundee, topped off with a visit to the 24-hour bakery, he asked me to marry him. A momentous occasion. But elsewhere that same night, there was a Christmas party for a certain department of Dundee University, and another romance began to blossom. Matt's music taste is much cooler than mine, and yes, I realise I'm sounding like some old fud by even just saying that. When David Bowie died last year, there was a meme going around saying how incredible it was that in the millions of years of history, in the vast infinite expanse of the universe, that you existed on the same planet at the same time as Ziggy Stardust. John Grant, see, Matt, I'm keeping up, sings in Disappointed. There's nothing so comforting as to know you are here in this time, in this place. I think it's wonderful that two people in love not only exist in the same space and time, but actually find each other and settle down to a life together. And I can't imagine a lovelier couple.
Oh. Thank you, Pete.
Before I toast them, I'd also like to thank, you see this is where I was ready to all do this, on behalf of the groom, Stuart, Helen, Norma, Graham, our families for all their help and support over the last months, days, and everything. Almost there. And as you raise your glasses, please also remember those who may not be here today, but that we know are still with us in spirit. Matt and Katie are a wonderful couple, and I wish them every blessing for the future. To Matt and Katie.
Matt and Katie.
And that is it. I promised it was short.